Buddhadhamma, Chapter 5, Section 3, The Process of Life, the Law of Karma. Page 461. Proper relationship to the next life. Many people are fascinated and preoccupied with the questions whether past and future lives exist, or whether heaven and hell exist. This is because these matters remain mysteries, obscured by people's ignorance. It seems appropriate to say a bit more about this subject, especially in regard to whether one is able to provide their authenticity. First, according to the literal translation of the Buddhist scriptures, these things do not indeed exist. Second, there is no end in trying to prove the truth of these matters. No one is able to definitely convince someone else of the existence or non-existence of these things. Generally speaking, these matters remain on the level of belief. On the whole, neither those people who accept the truth of these things nor people who do deny them have a clear understanding of the life's course, both in regard to themselves and to others. They are both in the dark about the past. They lack an understanding even for the circumstances surrounding being born in this lifetime. Similarly, they are unable to discern the future, even about what is going to occur tomorrow. Third, in terms of seeking proof of something, there exists the guideline that which is visible needs to be seen by the eye. That which is audible needs to be heard by the ear. That which is guessable needs to be tasted by the tongue, etc. A dozen ears and tongues cannot verify a visible form. Can a score of eyes and nose verify an audible sound? Moreover, if one is incapable of receiving certain wavelengths of frequencies, visible or audible perceptions may not occur. Certain things by a cat are invisible even to 10 times the capability of a human eye. Likewise, certain things heard by a bat are inaudible to 10 times the capability of a human ear. From one perspective, rebirth manifests as direct experience. It is a phenomenon occurring in the mind. Therefore, it can only be verified by the mind itself. Attempts to prove the truth of rebirth may thus follow this sequence. Verification by way of mind. In this context, the Tipitaka recommends using a mind that is well concentrated. If one is declined to use this method, or if one fears that a mentally created image, a nimitta, arising in concentration, samadhi, will be deceptive, one may use one of the following methods. Verification by sacrificing one's life. By definition, no one who is alive has experienced death in this lifetime. If one really wishes to prove the truth of rebirth, one must thus choose to die. But naturally, no one wishes to undergo such a test. Verification by way of case histories and reasoned arguments. For example, one seeks out stories of those people who remember past lives and investigates these accounts. Or one compares this matter with the verification of others' aspect of truth. For instance, in the example above about examining wavelengths of light or frequencies or sound, these rational presentations help to validate this matter, although grant the understanding remains in the level of belief, not direct knowledge. And the fourth, no matter how strong a person's beliefs or denials are, or how much evidence is presented about rebirth, that which is undeniable and inescapable, that which acts as the link to the next life, whether one believes it or not, is namely this present lifetime, which everyone must relate to and engage with. Therefore, it is the present life that requires the majority of our care and attention. Theravada Buddhism is a religion of practice and application. The main focus is on how we behave in relation to this lifetime, how we conduct ourselves in the present, and make the most of this life in order to live well, and in case that a future life does exist, to be confident that one's goodness and virtue carries over into the future. Again, Theravada Buddhism is a religion of practice and application. The main focus is on how we behave in relation to this lifetime, how we conduct ourselves in this present and make most of this life in order to live well, and in the case that the future life does exist, to be confident that one's goodness and virtue carries over into the future lifetime. In this context, there are several observations and recommendations for one's spiritual practice. In the original Tipitaka Pali Canon, in the sutras, there are very few descriptions of past and future lives and of the heaven and hellish realms. In most cases, these subjects are mentioned to refer to as belief. In the Bālapaṇḍita Sutra and the Devadūta Sutra, which are important sources of latter works of the heaven and the hellish realms, there are three hells that are named. On being born in heavenly world, Devaloka, on the lifespans of the Devatas, and the seven abode of consciousness, Vijnana Ati Iti, and the nine abodes of being, Satta Vasa. If one compares these things to the teaching pertaining to the present life, say to the development of morality, the development of concentration, and the development of paññā, wisdom, one sees that the percentage is very small. In the canonical Tipitaka descriptions of the adverse effects of bad karma and the blessing of good karma, if there is a mention of being born in the heaven or the hellish realms, these statements are generally added after mentioning several, sometimes up to 10 results that one is likely to experience this in this lifetime. These present lifetimes results may be followed by the phrase, with the breakup of the body after death, one is reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the lower world, in the hellish realms. Or by the phrase, one is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. Note how these results in this lifetime are given prime significance, are clearly distinguished. The result after death are merely tagged on to the end to complete the account. Moreover, the presentation of positive and negative effects is outlined in the description of the facts according to the causal process. One need not beseech or wish for these effects to take place. They occur automatically. And awareness of this leads to confidence and assurance. For those people who deny rebirth, as long as they do not have truly penetrated the truth of this matter and remain on the level of belief, they believe rebirth to be untrue. They are unable to fully dispel deep-seated doubts in their own minds. When the strength and excitement of youth wanes and old age begins to take hold, these people often begin to fear the possibility of a next life. If they have not prepared themselves in regard to virtue, they experience affliction. For the sake of assurance and ease, regardless of whether the next life is true or not, such people should not spend their lives performing good deeds. Those people who believe in rebirth should contemplate the following manner. They should base their belief solidly on the principle of causality. That is, they should view the results in the future life as a continuation of one's state of mind established in this lifetime. Moreover, they should emphasize doing good in this present moment in order to cultivate a wholesome life and a state of mind, so that any possible future lives that are also endowed with goodness and virtue. With such an emphasis, one's involvements with the expectation around future lives will be based securely in the present. one will place greater importance on this lifetime. No matter how fascinated one may be about future lives, one still gives more significance to this life. One does not perform good actions as a form of investment or pursuit of personal profit. A sound belief in the future lives helps to abandon or reduce a reliance on divine intervention or external powers. This is because a genuine belief in the future lives implies a belief in one's own good actions. It leads to a confidence in one's own wholesome actions, acting as a cause for advancing and prospering in the round of rebirth, samsara vata, or in Lao or Thai, vinvai thai good. A dependence on external powers, on the other hand, makes one more feasible, and to cause one to regress or fall behind the round of rebirth. If someone has lapsed into such a dependence, he or she should hasten to step back and generate a sense of individual strength and authority. Regardless of whether one believes or disbelieves in rebirth, one needs to reach the stage at which one abstains from evil and performs good, irrespective of one's belief. If one is a believer, one acts without any expectation in regard to future lives. If one disbelieves, one simply abstains from doing bad. This stage can be reached by practicing in the following ways. One develops a genuine love of truth, dhammachanda, or a love of goodness, kusala chanda. One cultivates an aspiration for truth, satcha, and love of virtue, sila, a wish for refinement and purity, and desire for things to reach their ultimate state. One develops an interest in profound internal bliss. An experience of such bliss itself protects against evil, unskillful action, supports wholesome action. This is because one prerequisites for experiencing them, such bliss is an absence of immoral behavior and an engagement with virtuous behavior. Moreover, the realization of such bliss curbs a level of infatuation with sense pleasure, by which one is prone to perform wicked or unskillful acts. Having said this, in regard to profound mundane bliss, one still needs to exercise caution so that one does not indulge in it to the extent of undermining one's efforts, of impeding one's spiritual progress. One develops paññā, wisdom, and lives one's life in accord with paññā, wisdom. One develops a comprehensive understanding of the world and of conditioned phenomenon to the extent of reaching an adequate level of freedom and independence. One does not captivated by material things or by sense objects to the extent that one would act immorally for their sake. One recognizes the happiness and unhappiness of other people and other creatures, giving rise to compassionate assistance. One is not inclined to oppress or harm others. This level of paññā, wisdom, is reached by those individuals who have realized the transcendent lokutaraya dhamma, who has cultivated transcendent right view, lokutaraya sammatiti. At least it is reached by those people who practice and conduct their lives in order to realize the transcendent. If one is unable to reach the level of paññā, this level of wisdom, then one should develop faith, which is the preliminary stage for paññā to arise. This faith is accompanied by understanding and is conducive to paññā, wisdom. Here one believes the path of paññā, wisdom, and trust in life of freedom based on paññā, wisdom. Through one's own efforts, one gradually incorporates these principles of wisdom and compassion. These three factors are interconnected and mutually supportive. In particular, the first factor of developing the love of satcha and goodness, the love of truth and goodness, is required for all wholesome activities, which act as the basis for the factors of 2 and 3. Dhammachanda. If one develops these three factors, Belief in actions bearing fruit in future lives reinforces one's determination to do good and abstain from the bad. This belief, however, is not the divisive factor determining one's wholesome action. If people's spiritual practice is still unsteady, they are unable to develop these three factors. It is still better to maintain a belief in the fruits of karma in the future lives as the incentive for doing good and refraining from doing bad, than to indulge in sensual pleasure and seek out material things for personal gratification. Such an indulgence simply leads to mutual oppression, widespread wrongdoing, and personal social misfortune. In any case, the belief of the fruits of karma ascending to the future life is designated as an aspect of the mundane right view, loka samatiti, which acts as a link to facilitating process on the path of virtue.